You're not the same person she's used to managing, and she's starting to notice. People don't experience relationships in real time as much as we'd like to think. A lot of what we experience is actually pattern recognition. You see someone often enough, you build a mental model of them, how they respond to pressure, what they do when they're hurt, where their soft spots are, what you can expect when things get tense. That model runs in the background. It shapes how people speak to you, what they ask of you, and what they assume you'll tolerate. Here's what happens when the model stops being accurate. She sends a message that, in the past, would have sent you spiraling. Something slightly cold, slightly ambiguous. The kind of thing that used to make you analyze it for 20 minutes and send 3 replies trying to figure out where you stood. This time, you read it, feel nothing particularly urgent, and respond with something brief and easy. She expected friction. She got settled. That mismatch is small, but it registers, not necessarily consciously, more like the slight confusion you feel when you reach for a light switch in the dark and your hand lands in the wrong place. Something is off. The room is the same, but the layout has changed. This is why the shift isn't usually dramatic. She doesn't announce that she notices you've changed. It surfaces as a different kind of attention. She watches a little more carefully. She asks a question she wouldn't have asked 6 months ago. She tests a reaction, not manipulatively, just because the old data she was working from no longer seems reliable. The key thing to understand is this. The change doesn't impress her in the way some people expect. It doesn't produce immediate pursuit or sudden warmth. It produces something quieter, a recalibration. She's updating the model, and that process, depending on who she is and what this dynamic was, will unfold at its own pace and produce its own result. Your job during that period is not to perform the change. It's simply to be it. Real growth has specific observable signatures. These are the 5 she'll register, often before she can name them. Change 1. The way you communicate has a different center of gravity. In the old version, your communication was often shaped by her state. If she was warm, you were warm. If she was distant, you got anxious or pulled back defensively. Your tone was reactive, calibrated to whatever she was giving you in a given moment. The new version has its own temperature. Not cold, not unresponsive, but grounded in you rather than determined by her. What this sounds like in practice, she sends something short and a little clipped when you ask about making plans. Old you, a 2-paragraph message trying to diagnose what went wrong. New you, no problem, let me know when works better for you. Same message, surface level. Completely different internal source. She notices it because the response didn't come with the anxiety she's learned to expect. The conversation didn't go sideways. You didn't need her to fix it. Change 2. Your reactions have stopped being predictable. This is related to communication but distinct. It's about what you do when things go wrong rather than how you talk. Previously, certain things could derail your mood for the rest of the day. Her cancelling plans, a brief dismissive comment, the feeling of being pushed to the edges. You'd either say something about it in a way that created more friction, or you'd go quiet and distant in a way she could feel. Now she cancels plans and you genuinely adjust. You're not performing equanimity. You actually have somewhere to put the afternoon. Your life didn't have a hole waiting to be filled by this interaction. So when it doesn't happen, you're fine. The absence of the predictable reaction is itself information. She learns that she can't read you the way she used to, which means she has to actually pay attention. Change. 3. Your limits have become legible. A limit that isn't expressed clearly isn't a limit. It's a resentment being stored. Old version, you'd allow things you weren't okay with, say nothing, and then either explode disproportionately later or withdraw without explanation. New version. Something happens that you're not willing to accept, and you name it once, without making it a crisis. I need you to be straight with me about whether you actually want to make plans, because reorganizing my schedule when things fall through repeatedly isn't working for me. Not a speech, not a threat, just clarity about what you need and what you're noticing. She may not like it, but she hears it as coming from someone who knows where they stand. And that's a different person than the one who used to say nothing and simmer. Change 4. Your priorities are genuinely different. This one is harder to fake. which is why it carries the most weight. She sees you engaged in things that clearly matter to you, a project, a direction, a commitment you're maintaining. Not described to her as accomplishments, just present in how you spend your time, how you talk when something comes up, how you respond when your time is asked for. I can't do Saturday. I've got something I've been working on. Could do Sunday afternoon though. No apology. No explanation of what the thing is unless she asks. Just the reality that your time has shape. This communicates without stating it. You're building something. The relationship, if it happens, will be an addition to that, not a replacement for it. Change 5. Your presence feels complete, not contingent. This is the subtlest one, but often the one she registers most viscerally. In the past, your mood in her company was dependent on how she seemed to be receiving you. If she laughed, you felt good. If she seemed distracted, you recalibrated. You were reading for approval the whole time, even if you'd never have named it that. Now you're just there. You're having the dinner, the conversation, the walk, and you're not running a background calculation about how it's going. You're asking questions because you're curious, not because you're trying to produce warmth. You can let a comfortable quiet exist. She can feel the difference. She's not being auditioned for your happiness. You're not performing for hers. That kind of presence is rarer than it should be. When she encounters it, something shifts in how she inhabits the space with you. This is the section where most of the progress gets undone. Not because of anything dramatic, because of several completely understandable but counterproductive responses to her renewed attention. Mistake 1. Overinvesting immediately. She shows warmth, you match it and then double it. After weeks of having your own life and your own centre, suddenly every evening is available and every message gets a rapid response. She went from experiencing someone who had his own gravity to experiencing someone who was just waiting for her to show up. The warmth is real. The response is human. But the effect is that the model she was just updating gets revised again, back toward a familiar territory. Mistake 2. Explaining the growth. I've really been working on myself. I've been reading a lot about boundaries. I've been going to therapy. She doesn't need the footnotes. The moment you start explaining the change, you've shifted from demonstrating it to seeking validation for it. You're asking her to confirm that you've done well. That's not the behavior of someone who has changed. It's the behavior of someone who needs to be told they have. Let the change speak without narrating it. Mistake 3. Treating her renewed interest as confirmation. If she starts reaching out more, initiating more, showing warmth she hadn't shown in a while, the tempting interpretation is that this proves the work paid off. That she's coming back because of who you've become. Maybe. But people reach out for complicated reasons. Sometimes it is genuine recognition. Sometimes it's the discomfort of losing predictable access to someone. Sometimes it's a moment that won't sustain into a pattern. Her interest is worth acknowledging. It's not worth building your self-assessment on. Mistake 4. Abandoning the life you built during the reset. The thing that changed the dynamic was that you built something. You filled your time with something real. The moment her attention returns and you let all of that quietly collapse in favor of being available, you've removed the exact thing that made the difference. Keep the routines, keep the commitments, keep the life that exists independently. That's not a strategy. It's just what it looks like to be someone who has actually changed rather than temporarily performed it. Stay consistent, not reactive. However she responds to the new version of you, warmly, with confusion, with renewed interest, with distance, your behavior stays the same, not rigid, consistent. You don't calibrate yourself back to her current temperature. Communicate from your actual position. When something matters to you, say it once, plainly. When something doesn't work for you, name it without drama. When she asks what you're thinking, tell her the real answer rather than the optimized one. Example, she asks if you've been talking to anyone else. Old version, vague, anxious, whatever answer seems least likely to create conflict. New version, I've been focusing on my own life lately, I haven't really been pursuing anything seriously. What's behind the question? Honest. Grounded. Turns it into an actual conversation. Let her come to her own conclusions. You're not trying to convince her of anything. You're not managing her perception. You're just living your life in her vicinity and letting her observe what that looks like. Hold your limits without announcing them. If she cancels plans last minute for the third time in a row, you don't give a speech about it. You just don't reorganize your schedule around uncertain plans anymore. She'll notice when you stop doing it. Stay in genuine contact with what you actually want. Not what seems strategically wise, what you actually want from this. More closeness, a real conversation about where things stand, a defined relationship, something casual. Know the answer. It keeps you from drifting into dynamics that aren't serving you because they looked like progress. Scenario 1. The cancelled plans before. She messages at 6 p.m. Hey, something came up. Can't make tonight. Sorry. He reads it, feels his stomach drop, waits 20 minutes, then sends, Oh, okay, no worries. Is everything okay? We can reschedule whenever. I'm pretty flexible. Just let me know, she says. Yeah, sorry, just tired. We'll figure it out. He spends the rest of the evening wondering what tired means and whether she's losing interest. After, same message. He reads it. He had things he could do, with the evening anyway. He replies, All good. Let me know when you want to figure out another time, she says. Yeah, sorry about that. You're not annoyed? He says, No, I get it. Things come up. She says, Okay, good. How about Thursday? She offered the next date. He didn't have to chase it. Scenario 2. The direct question. Before, she says, I feel like you've been distant lately. Are you okay? He says, No, I'm not distant. I've just been busy. I'm fine. Is something wrong? Did I do something? I don't want you to feel like I'm distant, she says. It's fine. Forget it. The conversation dies. He spends the next 2 days over-texting to prove he's not distant. After, she says, I feel like you've been distant lately. Are you okay? He says, I've had a lot going on, honestly, but I'm good. What's been on your mind? She says, I don't know. You just seem different. He says, I probably am a bit different. I've been more focused on my own stuff lately. Is that bothering you? She pauses. Not bothering me, I think. Just different. He says, Fair enough. That's it. The conversation landed somewhere real. Nothing was over-explained or over-defended. She walked away with a more accurate impression of who he currently is and something to sit with. Here is the honest version of what this is all about. The growth was for you, not for her reaction, not to trigger a shift in the dynamic, not as a tactic in a longer game. If it changes the dynamic, if she notices and responds and things move towards something real, that's a good outcome. But it's a secondary outcome. The primary one was already achieved the moment you stopped organizing your life around whether you were enough for someone who was giving you inconsistent signals. Her noticing that you've changed is interesting information. Her renewed interest, if it comes, is worth taking seriously. And her continued distance, if that's what happens, is also information, just different. Information. Neither one tells you whether you did the work correctly. You don't get graded by her response. What you've built, the steadier communication, the real limits, the life that doesn't depend